Hi everyone, Kendall here, and welcome back to another installment of our Festivals and Fireworks Sew-Along, hosted by Pat Sloan at her website, ilovetomakequilts.com. Before we get into this week's block construction, I'd love to give a shout out to one of our subscribers, Lylene. She took the time to hit the little thanks button that appears under every single one of my videos, and she donated some money towards future videos that I make and to help me out. So thank you very much, Lylene. Everyone, feel free to do exactly the same thing, but there's no pressure and it's not expected. So grab your fabric, grab a beverage, come with me, and I'll show you how to do it. No changes again to this week's block because as last week we are making the friendship stars again, just in a smaller size and grouping 4 of them into one block. So I have got a cutting sheet for you this week, and there is a bonus on this week's cutting sheet which we'll get to shortly. But to start this week, we are going to make our half square triangles even using the 2 at a time method, and for that I'll just be using my D squares and my B squares. So I'll put my A squares to the side for now, and you may notice that I don't have all my other colors on the cutting mat, and we'll also get to that in due course. So to make our half square triangles, we'll take our background squares and we'll draw a diagonal line in one direction from corner to corner, and then we'll match those up right sides together with our D squares, and we'll take that to the machine and we'll sew 1/4 inch on each side of our drawn line. With our stitching now done, we'll simply just cut these apart, and I like to give them a quick press to set all my stitches before I do that. So I'll just put them on the pressing mat, give them a quick press to set those seams, and then cut them in half along our drawn line. We'll then press all of these towards the dark side before getting to the trimming down. As I said before, we now need to trim our half square triangles down to the required finished size, and in this instance, that is 2.5 inches. So if you've been with me for a while, you know that I like to trim my half square triangles down 2 at a time and after they're pressed. To do this, I grab a square ruler because the diagonal line gets placed along our stitching line, and then we make sure that we have enough fabric outside our required trim down measurement of 2.5 inches on all 4 sides before trimming the first 2 sides away. We then rotate the block, and now we can place our required measurement of 2.5 inches on our freshly cut edges, and once again ensure that our diagonal line from our ruler is on our stitching line before trimming away the final 2 sides, and you have perfectly trimmed down blocks every time. Now, if you all remember from week 1, we had some offcuts for our light blue and our green sew and flips that we did as a change to the pattern for that. So I am actually going to make use of those this week, and I originally trimmed them down to 3.5 inches thinking I'd use them in a different block, but then I thought to myself, no, I can use them in this one. There is a little bit of waste because we do need to trim all of these down to the 2.5 inches so that it matches the rest. So we'll take 8 of each color and trim those down to our 2.5 inches, and that leaves 1 color, my red, and the bonus on this week's cutting sheet. So let's get to it. As we need a total of 8 half square triangles of each colour for this week's block, I thought I'd show you how I do the 8 at a time method. It's not my method, I didn't make it up. It's just a handy one to use, and it compounds the 2 at a time half square triangles and is very similar to using the triangle paper. So you'll see on the bonus side of your cutting sheet this week that I have a cutting chart for the size squares to start with to make the 8 at a time method. When we need a finished size of 2 inches, which we do in this case, we start with a square that is either 6 inches or 6¼ inches. I've put on that cutting sheet that it's strongly advised to add the extra 1/4 inch, but that's only if you don't trust your 1/4 inch stitching, because the 6 inches is plenty, as that is 2 times the 3 that we would have cut for the 2-time method. So what you do is you take your 6-inch square in this instance and you draw a diagonal line in both directions, corner to corner. You match that up with right sides together with the red fabric in this instance, and then I'm going to secure it with a few pins because this is a larger piece of fabric, and we take this to the machine, and just like the 2 at a time method, we're going to stitch on both sides of both of these drawn lines. And now that we have stitched our 1/4 inch on each side of both our drawn lines, I'll once again give this a quick press to set those seams before dissecting this block. Now we do this a little bit differently. We don't just straight away cut on our diagonal lines. What we need to do first is cut this in half horizontally and vertically. So because I have a 6-inch square here, I am going to line up my 3-inch measurement on the edge and slice this in half vertically first of all. I'll then move my ruler to the bottom and I'll find that 3-inch mark on the edge of my square once more and cut it in half horizontally along that 3-inch measurement. Then we can, just as the 2 at a time method, cut these apart on our drawn lines before pressing them to the dark side and trimming them down. And you have 8 half square triangles at a time. Now there are many other ways of making half square triangles, and I will put a card in the top right hand corner of your screen now to a video that I did during the butterfly sew along where I did them 10 different ways. You can also use your AccuQuilt cutters to make this week's block, and what I have here is my 2.5-inch square multi die, and the other one that I'm going to show you in a moment, I'm just giving you that number there, 55059. It's the 2.5-inch multi die for the squares. And the other one that I have here is my 2.5-inch finished half square triangle multi die also. I did not use these to make this, as you would have seen, and this sticker has partially come off, but it is 55063, I believe, and that is the multi 2.5-inch die. And you can use those if you have them and do your cutting with your AccuQuilt. So now is the time in the video where we need to lay our block out, and in essence what we're going to be doing is making 4 9-patch units that then sew together as a 4-patch unit. In this video, however, I will just be making 2 of our friendship star blocks, and I like to get the orientation of the first one, and then it's a 1/4 turn for each side so that we know that we've got our star points in the right direction. So we match that back up, give it a 1/4 turn and put that one there. Our last one now, again, match it up with where we are, a 1/4 turn clockwise and place that one there. We'll then take our A squares and fill in all of those the other 5 spaces before sewing, first of all of our vertical seams and then our final horizontal seams. I'll make the other 6 friendship stars off camera and join you back to make the final layout. With our first lot of horizontal seams now done, and you've seen me there do this via a chain piecing method, we are just going to finger press all of these ones out towards the solid square, so our A squares in this instance, before attaching our final vertical seam there. We'll then give all of these an actual press before doing our horizontal seams, and once we get to the horizontal seams, I'll go through again how I spin the seams on the back to make the block as flat as possible. As I said before, now that we've done that stitching, I'll give them a proper press using our iron, and then I'll be able to sew our horizontal seams. And because we've pressed towards those solid pieces of fabric, all of our inner sections will nest, and once I have that done, we will swirl the seams. So with the first two of our horizontal seams done, as I said before, 2 or 3 times I believe, we're just going to spin these seams so that our bulk is controlled. And to do that, you can see me here just picking out the few stitches that are above our vertical stitching line that we just made. And then we're going to twist these apart and spin all of our seams in the same direction. And you'll go with the 2 that are already there. So you'll see me here on the right hand side, they are spinning clockwise, and you open up that little seam, and on the other side they will spin anti-clockwise, and you open up that little seam also. It just controls where all the bulk is going. And then I like to flip it over to the front and give it a press from the front so that I don't skew any of the other seams and move them with the iron. We'll repeat that on the other one, and then we'll do our final 2 horizontal seams, and I'll spin those seams once again. And then, as I said off camera, I will make the remaining 6 friendship star blocks that we need for this week and meet you back for the final block construction.
A few moments later.
Okay, so I have all 8 of my friendship stars now made, and we need to lay these out in our 4-patch fashion to make our 2 blocks. if you've done what I have and spun all those seams, we can actually nest every single one of these seams when we sew these together, both vertically and horizontally. So for a 4-patch layout, we'll just put the stars wherever we want them, and then we'll check to see that those intersections are actually going to nest. And as I said, if you spun every single one of your intersections, you can get every single one of these to nest when doing both the vertical and horizontal seams. So lay them out, checking for those nestings, and then we will do our vertical seams first and then our 2 horizontal seams. And when doing these, we will once again spin every intersection. You can just press them to one side if you like. My preference is to spin those intersections, and our 2 blocks for this week will be done. Just while you're watching through this part, I would like to take a moment to ask you to like the video, share it with a friend, click the subscribe button if you haven't already done so, and tickle that little bell icon to be notified of all my future updates. It really does help me out and it helps my channel to grow. I'd also really appreciate if you could leave me a comment down the bottom underneath the video, even if it's just a simple thank you. So as you can see there, folks, I did spin every single one of my intersections on the back of the block, and doesn't it look pretty? It is a little bit of extra work, but as you saw, if you do it on all of the blocks, you can get every single seam to interlock and you will have a 100% flat block. If you like to press to one side, that is all well and good. I spin the seams mostly in this example because my background fabric is a little on the thick side, as it is a print. The white on white is printed on the top of the fabric rather than printed into the fabric. So it's a little bit dimensional and a little bit thicker. So spinning those intersections really helps me out. Thanks for joining me again this week, folks. And as I said just before the finish, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already done so. That's it for this week. So bye for now.